Hey Ottawa, this is your Monday Market Snapshot for Monday, October 28th, 2024. My name is Annalie Rice. I'm a realtor here in Ottawa, Ontario, and every week I bring you the details of what's going on in the Ottawa real estate market. I switched back to my old colors just for this week to celebrate Atletico Ottawa. That's our CPL team here in Ottawa. And yesterday they had an exciting quarterfinal match and win over York U from Toronto. And next week they're off to the semifinals in Hamilton. So good luck to Atletico. It was exciting to be at the game, and I wish them the best in the rest of the playoffs. This week, because it is close to the end of the month, I am including some of the charts for the month-end stuff just to get a little bit of a sneak peek of what we are going to see come next week and the end of the month stats. Okay, on to real estate. Citywide, the active inventory dropped this week, down by 86 across property types, but most notably in the detached and townhome markets. The sales in the last week were up by 35, which was expected because last week was a dip following the long weekend for Thanksgiving. The increase was in detached and towns, mostly towns there, and slightly down for condos, which makes sense again because of the long weekend 2 weeks ago would make it fewer conditional sales that week, which translates into a couple weeks later for condos. The visuals on the inventory breakdown, you can see the overall inventory, the black at the top there. We're slowly coming down there, and as is the active inventory in green. The gap between the active inventory for this year and last year, those are those two horizontal lines, is actually quite slim. However, you can see that last year the inventory really dropped off quite quickly as you got through November and December. It really dropped off. I expect it to do the same this year, but it has been elevated throughout the whole late spring, throughout the summer, and in through the fall here. So I wonder if it's going to hold off a little bit longer, or if we are going to see the typical more sharp drop off. If you look down at the bottom, you've got the conditionally solds, which remains above what we have for the firm sales. So that's positive for next week. And the firm sales jump back up this week, and you can see that the little horizontal line there, we're kind of at the same sales as we've seen throughout most of September there, but you can see that the sales last year are and were quite a bit lower than what we've seen this year. We had 349 properties that were listed this week. 114 of those, or 33%, were relisted properties, and the remainder, which was 235 properties, were new to the market listings. That was 67% of the properties. You can see that with the little horizontal lines there, you can see that our new inventory and new to the market and sales are higher than what they were last year, not by a whole lot, but the sales significantly higher than last year. We had 214 sales this week, and 16% of those sold with no conditions. That was up 1%, and the 20% sold at or above asking price. That was down by 1%. For sales within the first 7 days, it was 13 properties that sold, and that represented 6% of the overall sales. For those sales within the first 7 days, 69% of those sold with no conditions, and 54% sold at or above asking price. For sales within the first 30 days on the market, it was 44% of the sales, or 94 properties. 19% of those sold with no conditions, and 31% at or above asking price. For the sales at or above asking, we had 42 homes selling at or above asking price. 17 of those sold at asking or up to 1%. That was 40% of those sales. 19 sold between 1 and 5%. That was 45% of the sales. And then the other 14%, or 6 homes, sold for more than 5% of the asking price. For the first time in a little while, we have a bit of a split on the percentage and the dollar amount over. The highest percent over was 13%. It was a complete fixer-upper detached home in Orleans from the 80s, and it was listed at $420,000, sold for $475,000 with an offer date and time. It needed a lot of work, hence the really low price, and doing that, an offer date and time gets a little bit more attention, but clearly was not going to be an end user or buying that. Somebody's going to buy that and probably flip it. For the highest dollar value over was $65,100. It was a detached 2022 built 4-bed, 3.5-bath in Finley Creek, which I'm not sure I've had that many places from Finley Creek make the list before. It was listed just shy of $900,000 and sold for $965,000 with an offer date and time. For the homes that sold for more than 5% over, there was the 6 homes, and 4 of those had offer dates and times set up. Next, we'll look at the different regions of the city and see what's going on. In the central urban region, so inside the Greenbelt, we have a drop in inventory, especially for detached in towns. It was steady for condos, and sales were down just 1 for detached, although that's a pretty good number of sales for detached homes. And towns were up by 6, and condos just up slightly by 2. In Canada and Stittsville, we have a drop in inventory across property types, but most notably in the townhomes, which is fine because there was quite a high number of towns listed there for the last little while. Sales were up just the slightest bit for detached and towns, and down just 1 for condos. In Barrhaven and Riverside South, we have a drop in active inventory across property types, and sales were a bit of a mixed bag. Detached were down by 4, townhomes up by 5, and then condos just down by 1. And in Orleans, we have a bit of a mixed bag for inventory. We have a drop for detached and condos, and up a little bit for towns this week. And our sales were up across property types this week, up by 7 for detached to 16 sales, 13 sales of townhomes, and 6 condos selling this week. Here is the full data for the residential detached, and this is the first time, I think, probably since last spring that we've had, or last winter, where we've had the active days on market hit over 100. It was in the central urban region. The average is 102 days now. And we've got the full data for townhomes, and finally the full data for condominiums. Okay, so I have a few of the charts for the end of the month. This first one is the close price to the original list price. And you can see that for the detached and condos, it dropped. We're in the sort of 97.34 and 98.4 for townhomes, up slightly. This sort of gives you an idea of how much the sale prices are compared to the original list price. Now, my other stats talk more about, over the asking price, but that doesn't always capture if the property has dropped their price. So this one sort of gives you an idea that with the increased inventory for such a long time throughout the whole year, places are sometimes having to drop their prices to get to that sale. And so they may end up being closer to the list price, but it's not the original list price in some of those cases. Here's the average days to sell. We can see that they increase for detached and towns just slightly, and then the condos down the slightest bit there. We're sitting at or above 30 days for all of the different property types, and this slow increase that we've seen throughout the summer and into the fall there is typical. Inventory levels, sales dropping off is really what it is, and in our case this year we've had high levels of inventory throughout the whole summer and through the fall so far. So this is just, compilation of all of those factors leading it to be longer time on average because there's lots of inventory on the market. I was a bit hesitant to include the monthly sales, the number of sales, so early in the month. We still have 4 days left of the month, and it usually takes a couple days for all the sales to be reported. So this will be updated next week, as will all of the month-end ones. But I did want to point out, because here we are 4 days from the end of the month, and already our sales are well above what we were at last year. So these are as of October 27th. Actually, I rechecked them this morning, 28th. And here we are well above the sales from last year and several of the other years in that average 10 years. Clearly nowhere close to the peak years of 2020 and 2021, but it's been a pretty strong October compared to other years, a lot closer to the long-term average. And that's the end of our update for this week. I hope you have a fantastic week. And if you do have any questions or comments, please get in touch. See you next week.